What's going on, Guardians? It's Tizzle here, and in this video I thought it would be fun to rank the best exotics on each class, so today we'll be looking at the best Titan exotics. The criteria is based on the general strength of the exotic, but how much I like it will definitely play a factor in the ranking. Additionally, this is primarily focused on PvE, so if a certain exotic is awesome in PvP, I probably won't mention it in the top 10. I'm more looking at stuff that takes a build to the next level. So with that out of the way, let's jump into it. At number 10, we have the Stronghold Gauntlets. These make you basically invincible when you block with a sword, and they give you unlimited block duration so long as you have some sword charge. They used to work differently, but now, as you block, you build up stacks of Perfect Guard, and then when you hit an enemy, you will get Restoration ×2 for a duration depending on how many stacks of Perfect Guard that you had. This exotic allows you to tank a ridiculous amount of damage and not die. Like, it's absurd. It allows you to play tank for your team, which is basically what a Titan's identity is. So this suits a Titan perfectly and is a great way to kick off our list. At number 9, we have Precious Scars. This gives you and your allies an overshield when you revive a teammate or get revived. But then, it got a rework this season where it now grants restoration when you get a weapon kill that matches your subclass. So now you can get restoration on any subclass, and Resto is one of the most powerful subclass verbs in the game, so naturally this is quite strong. I'm very curious to see how this exotic will work with Prismatic. It could be interesting. At number 8, we have Cadmus Ridge Lancecap, and before you think I'm trolling, let me assure you I'm not. This exotic is actually excellent in endgame content. Being able to freeze enemies is great in a variety of situations, like it can stunlock Briggs, it can stun unstoppable champions, it can slow down enemies rushing the ADU and Onslaught. It has a ton of utility. And this exotic allows you to make Diamond Lances easily and often. It doesn't shine that much in easy content because most enemies just die anyways, so there's no reason to freeze things, but in harder content, this exotic is excellent. At number 7, we have Kirissa the Falling Star. This exotic is extremely simple. It doubles the damage of your Thunder Crash, but this makes it very valuable in certain situations. If you want to delete a boss like Aatrax, then this is the meta because it's a quick one and done super. Need to delete a champion quickly in a GM? As long as Arc Surge is on, then this can get it to finisher health at least. So it's great for quickly dispatching a high health enemy. It also gives you an overshield after you cast it, so it's good for getting away if you super something like a raid boss. Just a simple and strong exotic. At number 6, we have Abeyant Leap. These make your Drenger's Lash Barricade send out 3 suspending waves that seek instead of just 1. This is very powerful for controlling the battlefield and suspending large groups of adds. These were busted as hell when Lightfall launched thanks to certain fragments being overtuned and the suspend verb lasting for a very long time. These outliers have since been nerfed, and yet this exotic is still very strong in endgame content. It's great for crowd control and a really fun playstyle when you build into it. At number 5, we have Peregrine Greaves. I mentioned with Kiris how it's really valuable to be able to put down a champion in a GM quickly. Well, these can do that, but they don't require a super to do so, just a melee charge. And if you hit a champion, tormentor, or mini-boss with it, it will refund your melee. So in theory, you can just do this to a room full of champions over and over. It has since been patched, but this also did used to work on Nezarec, and people were soloing him with just Peregrine melees. So that tells you how strong these things are if they can solo a raid boss. They can also one-shot Guardians in PvP, which is pretty fun. So yeah, Peregrine Greaves definitely deserves a spot in the top 5. Up next, in the number 4 spot is Wormgod Caress. You may think these deserve to be higher, as I just talked about how crazy it is that an exotic can solo a raid boss. And this exotic can solo many raid bosses. And it's also the go-to choice for many solo dungeon speedruns. But that is more a result of how broken Banner of War and grapple melees are than it is a function of how strong Wormgod's Caress is. That is not to say it isn't extremely strong though. It is just that in combination with that broken build, it is just silly overpowered. But on their own, they can deal 275% more melee damage and 200% more glaive damage. So even without Banner of War and grapple melees, these are extremely strong. And they got a rework, so now it's much easier to keep their damage stacks up. So for that reason, it still ranks highly on this list because it can do some crazy damage with the right build setup, but for general play, I think there are a few better exotics. But this is definitely a super fun exotic to use, and it can work on any subclass. So now we get to the top 3, and at number 3 we have Heart of Inmost Light. There was a time when this was probably number 1. When Witch Queen launched, I had this shit ready to go and I paired it with Void 3.0 and I was literally spamming my abilities. My clanmates I was running the Witch Queen campaign with didn't know what was going on. I also used it to solo some GMs in Season of the Plunder when Arc 3.0 came out, and it was broken with storm grenades. It has since been tuned down, and for good reason, and yet it still makes my top 3. It's nice because it can pair with any subclass, and it buffs not only your ability cooldowns, but also the abilities themselves. I have an arc build with this that can still spam abilities like crazy, and it's very fun. I think it's in a pretty good spot these days. I was actually bored of the game in Season of the Plunder because I just called it Grenade Simulator because you could literally spam storm grenades and it would just do the work for you and you never really even had to shoot your guns. Now you at least have to use your abilities somewhat intelligently. At number 2, we have my new favorite exotic in the Pyrogale Gauntlets. These give you a better consecration melee that spawns little fire cyclones that damage enemies, but it also modifies your Burning Maul super into one giant slam attack. This makes it a super hard hitting one-off damage super, and this can be very valuable like I mentioned. Again, it gives you an ability that can one-shot a champ in GMs, which is very strong. It is also nice for raid boss damage as it lets you cast a super and then start dealing damage. It's extremely powerful and the play loop with it is also super fun. I was doing 2-minute Master Lost Sector clears with the Pyrogale build and it wasn't even really a challenge. This exotic is awesome and it has finally got me to take off what I think is the best exotic Titan armor in the entire game. But before I reveal what that is, let's give out a few honorable mentions. Insurmountable Skullfort gives you unlimited arc melees as long as you get a kill. This is great in at-light content as you can just spam melees and kill everything, but in higher end content it quickly loses its value. Speaking of arc melees, Point Contact Cannon Brace enhances your Thunderclap melee, and it's just one small buff away from being excellent. Sticking with the elemental melees, the Second Chance Gauntlets gives you a second shield throw melee ability, and the shield throw weakens targets on hit and it can stun barrier champs, and if you do stun it, then it will refund the melee charge. So this exotic has some very good utility. It just missed the list, but don't sleep on this exotic. It's very good. Speaking of arms that enhance Void Titan, Doomfang Pauldrons is another super fun and powerful exotic that is pretty slept on. I've always loved them and they definitely deserve a shout out. Dune Marchers are great in PvP and are even nice in PvE in the right content. Armamentarium gives you 2 grenade charges which can be very strong in the right build, and I have had a ton of fun over the years with Ashen Wake and even soloed a GM with them. They're very slept on. And Severance Enclosure is a lot like Skullfort. It's good in at-light content, but when the enemies get tankier, it falls off quickly. I've soloed a GM with Path of Burning Steps, so they're no slouch either. And finally, Lorelei Splendor Helm is a good survivability exotic for Solar Titans and is great for any new player as it will keep them alive. But once you learn what you are doing, there is a far better exotic to run with Solar Titan, and that is Synthoceps, the number 1 exotic on this list. It is pretty cool that an exotic that launched with Destiny 2 is at the top of the most powerful exotics for a certain class. And in all honesty, across the 3 classes, I think they're my favorite exotic. Way back in the day, my clanmate showed me the power of them in PvP and I never took them off. They used to increase melee lunge range, which is super helpful in PvP and also PvE. And to this day, when I'm running them, I often will melee at an enemy and it doesn't lock on because my muscle memory is so ingrained to know exactly how long the distance is that I can melee, or at least how far I used to be able to melee. So I'm still trying to get used to that nerf to their melee range. It's kind of annoying, but I do understand why they did it. But to compensate for the nerf, they buff the handling and reload speed of your weapons whenever you're surrounded. And when you are surrounded, your super also hits for 50% more damage and your melee hits for 165% more damage. This melee buff used to be 200% more damage, but again, Bungie had to nerf it. And this used to work with glaives as well, but now it only deals 100% more damage on glaives. Are you noticing a pattern here? Synthos have been nerfed in numerous ways over the years, and I think pound for pound they are still the best exotic in the game. The 50% increase to super damage is tremendous on something like Strand Titan, but it also makes both solar supers hit like a truck as well. It's excellent. And Behemoth Stasis Titan, well, it can one-phase Riven with these. With biotic enhancements proc the whole time, Stasis Super is the highest total damage super in the entire game. When you combine that with the increase to melee damage and how that compare with certain Titan builds, then it is well deserving of the top spot. So let's recap. At number 10 we had the Stronghold Gauntlets. At number 9, Precious Scars. At number 8, Cadmus Ridge Lance Cap. Coming in at number 7 was Kyrsa the Falling Star. Number 6 we had Abeyant Leap. Number 5, Peregrine Greaves. Number 4, Wormgod Caress. Number 3, Heart of Inmost Light. Number 2, Pyrogale Gauntlets. And number 1, we have Synthoceps. And that is going to do it for the best Titan exotics in Destiny 2. Making this list really made me realize how many awesome exotics Titans have, as it was quite tough to narrow this list down to 10. but I think if you used any of the 10 on this list, you would have pretty good success in most levels of content. Leave a comment down below letting me know what your favorite Titan exotic is and why. I may make a video on what mine is if I get time to before the final shape, but anyways, if you're still watching, then thanks so much for watching to the end. It means a lot. And if you want to see more ranking videos like this, then be sure to check out my weapon ranking videos. And don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and take care.